So, you want to write a script. Where do you start? Well, first off, if you're at a Starbucks or your desk, having the laptop out and staring at a blank screen with the typing line blinking in front of you, with only the title, already are you doing it wrong. There are many styles to writing, and if you're hoping to write based off feeling, this can work for a group of writers called pantsers. Essentially, a group of writers that ride by the seat of their pants. This can work for a number of factors. It provides unpredictability and retains a spirit of spontaneity. But with my film production background, this does not sit well with me. Film is an industrious practice. I treat stories the way you treat a machine. You develop a blueprint, you follow the blueprint, and you test the results. But writing is creative, you say. Yeah, so is painting, and yet there's several techniques for that. How do you want to be creative today? You want to go classical, baroque, impressionist, absurdist, modernist? What do you want? So you want to do pencil, oil painting, watercolor, sculpture, 3D art? It goes in various directions, but even with the creative result, there's still a fundamental principle to follow with whatever practice you choose. So it's creative is not a valid dismissal. Writing is no different, especially in an industry that acts like a damn content factory. Do you just think studios wait until the writer is inspired? No, which is why some of them are considering using AI, a big mistake, but I digress. I have a video on that. There's something I do before I even consider writing an entire screenplay. There are questions I need to answer before getting started. Otherwise, I will find myself getting distracted with everything else when I should be finishing the damn script. By doing this, it gives you the foundation or a roadmap to refer to when you find yourself off course. Trust me, that will happen often, especially if you have ADHD like me. Here's some things you should know before writing. Number 1, why am I writing this story? This is what you would call the theme of the story. Every time a story is used, yes, it's entertaining, but if all you're doing is providing cheap entertainment, there's plenty of room for that. But what is your message? What are you trying to say that's important for everyone else to hear? This will be your core reason on why you work. This not only answers why you're writing the specific script, but it also affirms your motivation that pushes you into this pursuit. I'll give you a dirty little secret that the salesman doesn't want you to hear. You don't get rich doing this shit. Yes, millions of dollars can be made from box office success, but if you have no access to these connections, all those little interviews you've imagined in your head are just you playing yourself. You've done nothing to earn that moment. Does it feel good? Yeah, a little bit. But there's a disingenuous gloss with it. Even in comedy, the happily ever after has to be earned after trial and tribulation. But in you having these little delusions, you're just fast forwarding to your favorite part. You're missing out on the rest of the journey and the lessons to be learned before. You don't watch Star Wars just to watch Luke blow up the Death Star and get a medal. There's a bunch of buildup that makes these scenes earned, except Chewbacca. But when you're writing a story, understand why you're writing it. Don't worry about being the first to come up with it. It's kind of arrogant to think that you'll be the first to come up with something nobody has when we've been doing this shit for thousands of years. Do you really think you're going to be the first? You don't think somebody hasn't said it already? I'm not trying to be an edgy asshole, but you can be successful by just getting the simple fundamentals down. As George Lucas says,
I attribute most of the success to the psychological underpinnings, which have been around for thousands of years, and the people still react the same way to the stories as they always have.
You can garner success by following the fundamentals, but understand why you're doing so. In this highly competitive industry that acts like the wreath for creatives around the world, why are you standing up to all this? Why is it that in this world, you carry this energy?
I decided long ago that I'm gonna be king of the pirates. If I have to die fighting for that, then I die.
Find your reason and just do it. Don't care. Just do it. Now, the question you're trying to answer. How? How do you want to say this message? You didn't come here for motivation. You came here for a tutorial. What medium? What medium are you putting this out on? Is it going to be a book, a game, a show, a comic? What? For each practice, you will need to know the fundamentals of each industry and practice. So if you're going to write a script for a comic, you better make sure to be descriptive of the environments and the characters. The purpose of this script is to make collaboration easier. If it's going to be an animated or fantastical film, the principles of scene and character description will be vital for how your project turns out. However, you may not need such detail if it's a simple romance or drama taking place in your local area. Your focus might sit on the actors. In fact, I would encourage many people to try and tell a regular story. This was the challenge Francis Ford Coppola had for George Lucas. As we know, Lucas likes to tell stories about the spectacular. But if he can't even manage to tell a story about the mundane, teenagers racing in 1960 Modesto, why would we trust him to tell a story about an epic space saga? The true test of a storyteller is to write a story without the fluff. Even with limited scope, you can still tell a grander story like Lucas did with THX 1138, all filmed within sound stages and I believe a parking garage, using simple uniforms and what he had surrounding him. That's another lesson to take. Work within your means. Let's be real. Most of you do not have access to a multi-billion-dollar studio at your expense. If you do, and you trust me enough to watch the video this far, just freaking hire me! Why are you still here? For the rest of you, you have limited access. Maybe you know somebody, but you can't overly be reliant on others. You have to put in the work to prove that you can do so. You have to be able to stand on your own with the skills that you have. Maybe you won't be able to produce that epic space rock opera. And maybe you can find somebody that's just looking to do so without putting in the work of writing it. Directing and producing are entirely different skills than writing. I like to call writing the theoretical part of film production, while directing and producing are the engineering departments of film production. But the reason I ask what the medium is because you will write according to what you have access to. At least, if you want your script to be produced, you better write within your means. This isn't as limited anymore, by the way. The way technology has progressed, yeah, I'm going to thank Lucas for this one. I don't think he gets enough gratitude for how Lucasfilm essentially democratized film production's accessibility to the world at large. Because of Lucas's contribution to editing and film technology, Adobe would have never existed without the innovations developed by Lucasfilm, such as EditDroid. Make fun of CGI if you want, but again, these types no longer hold the monopoly over what you see anymore. Of course, there's a lot more to it, alongside the development of camera and phone development. But my point is that the possibilities are near infinite. Might not look good sometimes, but the more you do it, the better it'll come out. Look at your favorite YouTuber when they first posted versus their videos now. Now that you understand which medium you're going to post to, whether that be YouTube, Webtoons, a book, your own tabletop campaign, whatever it is, you understand that what needs to be priority within your writing, and you'll be able to spill the right amount of detail. I really hope you don't describe camera actions panning left and right in a book unless it's a book about camera work. Then by all means, shut me up. Now, figure out a long-term plan for this. The worst thing you can do as a creative is to deliver an unsatisfying conclusion. Okay, I'm talking shop, not extracurricular conduct. Let TMZ handle that one. One of the worst things you could do with your work is to deliver an unsatisfying conclusion, or even worse, let production bite you in the ass. It may have been the death of creative energy that George R.R. Martin may have had for Winds of Winter. But in a less speculative theory, Fullmetal Alchemist, when produced as an anime, was starting to catch up with the manga, which forced the animation production team to develop a storyline that accelerated past the manga. As a result of this, some people were not satisfied with how Fullmetal Alchemist turned out. Therefore, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was a revisit to develop an anime which followed the manga more faithfully. As a result of this, it got some criticism for pulling Force Awakens with material they've already produced, but many appreciated the effort to revitalize and improve what's already been there, what they've already succeeded in before. This could have very well faced backlash for just remastering what they've already produced. The difference was their overall plan. In the previous one, it was just to simply adapt the manga into an animated format, but with their priorities still on the manga. In this version, it's now to adapt the finished manga into an animated format which will vary in its results. The difference is that they had an endgame, so every decision will make sense. Everything will be revisited at another part of the story, and the writers and showrunners aren't scrambling to create what isn't there on a time crunch. It gives you, the writer, room to work with when developing the pilot of your series. But even for shorter form productions, if you have the overall plan figured out, you get to pay attention to the little details that add to your story. This is what gives you room to pay attention. No longer are you worried about what's coming next. You already know what's coming next. Now you just need to successfully telegraph that story so that when the audience or reader puts two and two together, it all comes together. Because when you already have your story laid out, you can focus on the minor details that bring the story forth as a living, breathing equation. You're able to do every factor, facet, and detail that creates a believable immersion for as long as you need to tell this story. So develop the outline, know how your story is going to go, and by this evidence alone, there's very little reason for it not to work. But disclaimer, results may vary. When you get to writing your script, don't worry about getting it right, just worry about getting it done. If you worry about getting it right the first time, you'll never finish. You have your outline, and because you have your grander plan, this small part will make sense in the grander scheme. But again, you're not going to get it right the first time. You get better as you do it more. But let me emphasize, finish the script, even if it's terrible. And then after that, take cue from Stephen King, give yourself 2 to 3 weeks away from it. Once you're done, don't even think about it for that period of time. You do this so that when you come back, you have a fresh pair of eyes on it. It's like your child. You don't want to do anything to hurt or disable your child. At least I hope you don't. Even with your children, though. You want them to be better human beings, but when they're not acting like better human beings, what do? You correct the behavior and inform them that it's not okay. And then you give them a better example. You gotta be honest and make corrections accordingly. You love them, but you want them to do good. Unlike kids, if a script isn't good, you can just put it on the shelf. Please don't put your kid on the shelf and forget them. Scripts, yes. Kids, no. Please. Do you know how many draft screenwriters have for their works? It's a common practice. If you're burnt out, find a different project. It doesn't even have to be screenwriting. Sometimes you just take a break from writing. There's no shame in it. Even with George R.R. Martin, there's no shame in it. Because let's not pretend he didn't deliver us impactful storylines before that. Then, after you're confident in your script, be sure you don't skip the editing process. Do not give people your
raw, untamed power.
Please don't. I've done it, and guess what? None of those scripts ever got produced. It would never see the light of day because I did not respect the process. I've learned that so you don't have to. That's why I make these videos. So after editing and making changes based on your understanding, this is what academics would call a peer review process. The peer review is to ensure the quality of the research. It is to make sure that whoever pursues the theory has considered all factors and angles of their hypothesis. To ensure that before they make a theory about quantum mechanics, for example, that they have a basic understanding of the study and that they're not overly biased. I'll give you a little secret, we're all biased. Every single one of us has a bias. That's why peer reviews exist, so that bias doesn't influence an individual's research in a detrimental manner, to ensure that the theory stands up to the criticism of its peers. That being said, make sure you find people who have constructive aims for reviewing your work. And how do you do that? That part's a little harder to define. There's no one universal answer except find somebody who intends to make you better, not by tearing you down. Ignore people who are brutally honest, because people who like that tend to focus more on the brutality than the honesty. So basically, if the criticism sounds like nitpicking list of CinemaSins would write, take it with a grain of salt. Bear it no mind. If you're hyperfixated on one little detail, they're going to miss the overall equation. And after that, if you're receptive to their feedback, you should have a well-rounded script that endured the scrutiny of others. To take the suggestions and feedback and apply them in a way that works for you and your story. Your goal is to communicate, and if you're not clearly outlining the message, you've lost it already. So overall, that's it. You should have a finished and polished script by then, and not only that, if you have a series planned, you can answer that with confidence. So, again, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, get out there.